Hey guys, these are the last videos that you'll see. It's going to be everything that we've learned from Cisco 3 and 4, kind of combined into one gigantic video series. So I hope it's helpful. You guys let me know. And the first thing I wanted to show you guys was how to set up frame relay in Packet Tracer so that you can do that for your skills test. The first thing that I like to do is I like to see which serial cable I've already used, or serial port. Here you can see serial 000. Over here, serial 001. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use serial 0 in the cloud to connect to, or I'm sorry, serial 01 in the cloud to connect over here, and serial 00 to connect over here, just to kind of keep just to kind of keep things plugged in with some consistency. So if you click on the cloud, it'll show you this. Then you can just click on config and you can see frame relay over here. But we can't do anything until we set up frame relay on the config. So I've already got one set up. So let me remove it and I'll show you guys how to do it. You can pick your LMI type. Cisco, ANSI, or Q933A. We'll just leave this side as Cisco. We'll make it Delcy 201, and we'll call it frame relay to Fort Worth. This is serial 0. Okay. And click add, and it adds that Delcy to serial 0. Click on serial 1. We'll make this one ANSI, just so y'all have to see the LMI type change. Delcy, we'll name it 102. And we'll call it frame relay to Denton. We'll add it. Alrighty, so simple enough. If you go down here, click on serial DCE. This goes in serial 1 to serial 1. Click it again, serial 0 to serial 0. And now you've got a frame relay cloud connected to the two sites. So first thing that we want to do now is set up a template that all the other routers can use, and that's going to be the basic config. So I'm just going to go into one of the routers, go into config T, line con 0. I'm going to put a password on it, do the login command, do the logging sync. This one y'all might not remember from the security lesson. This is the exec timeout. This is just so if we're ever not at the router, meaning if we just leave it idle, our session won't time out and we won't have to put the password in again. And we'll go to the VTY lines, if I could spell it right. Cisco, login, logging sync, and the same thing, exec timeout. That means if somebody's telnetted into the router, their session won't time out, because your session will time out by default. So that just helps with that. We're going to do no IP, domain dash lookup. Actually, I shouldn't have done that from line configuration. We are going to do an enable secret of Cisco. We're going to do service password encryption to encrypt all of our passwords. Banner message of the day, and if any of you know who Patton Oswalt is, that's one of his jokes. So for the Patton Oswalt fans out there, that joke's for you. Let's see, I think that we're done with basic config. Console line, VTY, domain lookup, enable secret, service password encryption, and a banner. So now we're gonna, actually I want to show everybody this. Right now I'm in global configuration, and if I do a show run, oh, I can't do it, can I? Invalid input detected, because I can't do a show command from global config. However, if I type do show run, oh, look at that. I can show the running config without actually leaving global config. And I'd actually like to thank Paul for showing me that. So now you all know how to do that. Just type do in front of a show command, and you can do a show command while you're in a any type of config. I didn't change the host name yet. We're going to do that in a text pad. I got my secret. I've got service password encryption. I've got a banner and my console lines. So I am done with that. Go here, open up Notepad. Oops. It helps if I copy everything over, right? And the only thing I'm going to do is just name the routers. I'll call this Dallas. Copy it. Paste it in there. Dallas is done. Copy it. And now Fort Worth is done. And now Denton's done. So there's the basic config on all my routers. Now I can do the same thing for the switches if I wanted to, but we're not going to deal with the switches right now. We're going to set up everything in the routers. So when I get to the switches, we'll do that. Alright guys, so we have set up frame relay on our serial interfaces. Serial 0 is going on Del C 201 to Fort Worth. Serial 1 going on Del C 102 to Denton. What I want to do now is I want to finish setting up frame relay. So I'm going to go over here to connections and click on frame relay. Serial 0, frame relay to Fort Worth. And this arrow basically means 2. We're going to go serial 1, frame relay to Denton, and we're going to add it. So now frame relay is enabled. So when we go into our serial lines and do encapsulation frame relay, they should work. Okay, so let's finish the router config. I'm in Denton, going to config T. I'm going to go into interface serial 000, put an IP address on it. You can see that this interface is on serial 000. So, or I'm sorry, serial 000 is in the 10.0.5 network. I'm going to do a description. I'm going to do a no shot. And I'm going to go into interface serial 001. Do an IP address. We have to do encapsulation frame relay. Now remember, one of these connections was not the default LMI type. Which connection was it? It was the serial connection to Denton. The LMI type is ANSI. So I need to go into this frame relay, type in encapsulation. Sorry. Frame relay LMI type, sorry. Encapsulation, obviously. It's already been encapsulated. Frame relay LMI type, and then just type in ANSI. So now it's got the right frame relay type. I don't have to worry about a clock rate, so I can just do a no shut now. And it should go up and up. And it has. So The serial lines are done there. Now I can also see that I've got switches with VLAN, so I do need to go into my and do a no shut. Interface fast Ethernet 00. I'm going to do a no shut, make sure it's open, and then this connection, we'll work on it a little bit later. Dallas, let's open him up, configure his serial. I want to put a clock rate on this that reflects closer to the actual speed of the line. So let's say I want to make this line 512, and I want to make this one 256. And we're just going to leave this one at the default. We're going to say that this was a T1 connection. To do that, I'm just going to do the error or the question mark. 512K. Looks like the fastest clock rate I can do is 500,000. So there we go. And of course, you need a no shut. So there's that serial line done. Let's drag him over here to see what 001 has to offer us. IP add 10.0.5.37. Again, I want to reflect as close as I can to this 256K, and it looks like 250,000 is the closest I can get. I need to do a description. And a no shut. And we're going to end out of that. And then Fort Worth. He's got interface 001. IP add. Remember, this one is the frame relay connection, so we have to do the encapsulation. We can do frame relay LMI type and just do Cisco. We don't have to, because this was it was already set to Cisco, and that's what's used by default. But you can go in there and put it in there if you wanted to, and do a description that this is a connection to Denton via frame relay. And a no shut on that. Should go up, and if I can get my Windows 7 to work right, up and up. So everything's up and up on the serial lines. So now we can worry about the next pieces that we need to make this lab work the proper way. Remember to save your work during this, just in case packet tracer crashes, guys. Alright guys, you can see the topology changed a little bit. All I did was add this ISP router and this little web host over here. So let's go ahead and configure him real quick. So before we do the switches, I got to go into Dallas, and you can see I connected him to the AT&T router on serials 111 and 111, or 011, I'm sorry. So conft interface 001, an IP address. description, and we'll do a no shut. Go into AT&T, make sure that he has my clock right because he is my ISP, and he does. Let's go into interface, IP address. We'll do a clock rate of, we'll make it 2 megs. We will do a no shut and a description, connection to customer. So there is my ISP router, at least set up right there. And we'll do interface fast Ethernet 00 and just do a quick IP address of 12.16.128.1. And for our web host, what we'll do is we'll make his gateway 12.16.128.1, and we'll make his address .10. Alrighty. So make sure that host and server are happy with each other, which they are, and let's make sure that these routers are happy, and they are. So now what we're gonna, you notice I keep saving it a lot, guys. You'll need to remember to save it a lot, because if this crashes, it'll be nice if you don't have to reconfigure everything. We're gonna go into the switch now and make a basic template for basic config. So we're just going to go into one switch and do the same thing basically that we did with the switch, with the router. Go into line con 0, do logging, synchronous, password, login, and the exec timeout. We'll go into line VTY 015, do password, login, exec timeout, and logging synchronous, IP domain lookup. If I could spell domain right. We will go into banner MOTD. And enable secret Cisco, and last but not least, service password encryption. Or actually, I want to show you this. Remember, do, show, run. But you can do that from any config. You can also do that on switches. So, what I could do right now is, since I have my show run pulled up and I have the basic configuration done, I could copy this to every switch in the topology. But I'm going to take it a little bit, I'm going to take it one step further, because we know that these links right here are all going to be trunk links. So if I told you I wanted the gigabit and fast Ethernet ports to be trunks, then you would know that you have to make them trunks. And if I wanted this management VLAN to be 80, and I wanted this management VLAN to be 90, what I can do as a part of basic configuration is I can go ahead and go into the interface range, FA01 through 5, and do switch port mode trunk and switch port trunk native VLAN 80 so that they're in the same VLAN. Now, what does this command do? Well, it makes sure that all the trunking information is all shared in the same management VLAN of 80. Okay, it's an important command. It's a command that you need. Otherwise, your management information goes through VLAN 1. Okay, but I'm not done, because as you can see, I've got these guys hooked up through gigabit. These guys are hooked up through gigabit, gigabit, and gigabit. So I'm using the gigabit ports to my advantage in this topology. So what I'm going to do is go into interface range GI, standing for gigabit, 1/1 to 2. Oh, that's right, the 3650s are different. And do the same thing, switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk, native, VLAN 80. Now when I do my show run, I can see that at least the trunk ports have already been set for me. I don't have to worry about setting those. Okay, I still have to create the VLAN, I still have to create the management VLAN, I still have to do all that stuff, but at least I don't have to configure the trunk links, right? I'll pull up Notepad, I'm going to save it. And I'm just gonna copy it. Paste that in there. Exit. Got a host name. We'll call this Denton DS1. And we'll end. Actually, his name is Denton DS2. Okay. Now I can do that for the 3650s. And those will all work fine for the 3650s. The 2950s require a little bit different configuration. Not much though. 2950, as you can see here, GI01 and GI02, but the 2960s have GI11 and GI12. So for the 2960s, you'd have to go into Notepad and do gigabit 11 and gigabit 12. That's all you'd have to do. It's the only difference. So we'll just recopy this. And make sure that they're in there correctly. So you can see my trunk ports are configured. Everything's perfect, and I can do that for the other switches as well. Now, I don't have to worry about configuring those pesky trunk ports like I always do. I can do it right there on one switch. All the other switches fall into line. Alrighty. Alright guys, this is the most tedious part of the lab, and probably the most easy at the same time. It's just boring, but there's no real challenge to it. It's just really boring, so you don't ever really want to do it. But it has to be done. As you can see, I've written server root, server, client, client, server root, server, client, client. So obviously y'all know what I'm setting up here. or at least you should by now. I'm setting up VTP and STP. I want to call this VTP domain Denton, and I want the password to be, oh, what should the password be, guys? What's cool in Denton? We'll call it square, which isn't really cool, but whatever. This VTP domain is going to be Fort Worth. This VTP password will just be stock. And this sorry, routers don't have VTP domains, do they? So there are your domains and passwords that I want you to use. Now, again, this is the easy part, but it's also the most tedious part. You can see the VLANs I want you to add down here, and the VLANs I want you to add down here. So you have to go. Now, I'm just going to do one side, and then y'all configure the other side, okay? Y'all get this side configured however y'all want it. But I'm just going to do this side for sake of time on the video. So I'm going to go into DS1. Actually, we'll just go ahead and pull them up. Let's go ahead and name him. Make sure I'm in the right one, yeah. Okay, first thing that we have to do, let's go into the VLAN database and create our VLAN 80 for management purposes, and name it management VLAN. Okay, but we also have to add these VLANs, so let's go ahead and add those now. VLAN 130, and its name was administration. VLAN 140, and his name was marketing. And VLAN 150 with a name of sales. Okay, so I've added all my VLANs. I can do a show VLAN brief. You can see my newly created VLANs. Okay. Now I'm going to go into VLAN database again. We're going to do VTP server because that's what I wanted him to be. VTP domain was Denton. VTP password was square. Okay, so he should propagate that information, the VLAN information that is, to these clients in this other server over here. So let's do a show VTP stat. Our revision number is 0. Okay, so that means if I come over here and do a VTP stat, his revision is 0 as well. Okay, this is just really important because he doesn't have a revision number. Alright, and I'm showing you this there's a purpose, there's a method to my madness right now. Because I have all my VLANs created, but I did the VTP after I did my VLANs, so this is where this is going to come into play. Alright, so we're going to do his from config T, just so you can see both ways. We're going to do VTP mode server, VTP domain Denton, VTP password was square. Okay, now let's do an end and do a show VTP status again. Okay. His revision is 0. So let's see, his revision number matches the other switch. But let's add a VLAN. His revision number's 2 now. Let's look at his VLAN database. Oh no, he's only got the one test VLAN. What happened? Well, let's go back to this switch and see what his VLAN database looks like. Oh no, he's only got the one VLAN. It's the test VLAN. What happened? Well, he had a revision number of 0. He had a revision number originally of 0 as well. When I added this test VLAN, his revision number changed to 2. He never got the VLAN information. So what's important to understand about VTP? Set up VTP first, then add your VLANs. Don't add your VLANs and then set up VTP. It will erase all your VLANs. So I did that to kind of show you guys, what you can do. It's not a big deal. What we can do is we can go back into the server and we can go and do no VLAN 10. And we can see we deleted that VLAN. So since these two guys are both servers in the same VTP domain, as evidenced by that VLAN being gone now, let's just go back into VLAN database and add those VLANs again. VLAN 80, name, VLAN 130, name, VLAN 140, name, and I'm going to make one VLAN from config T just so you can see that you can do it. This is the way that Cisco recommends you do it. We VLAN 150 and then we would name it sales. Our revision number has changed. Our VLANs are now there. Let's go to this switch. Our VLAN, our revision number has changed, and our VLANs are there. So that's all good. Now for the clients, the easy part for them, just go into config T, VTP mode, client, VTP domain, Denton, VTP pass would be square. And the client's got the information already. That was the config T way. Here's the VLAN database way. VTP mode, actually just VTP client, VTP domain, Denton, VTP pass, square. There's our VLANs. So everything worked fine. Again, you can do the same thing over here, just with the domain of Fort Worth and the password stock. Alright, so y'all go ahead and do that, and in the next video we'll set up inter-VLAN, we'll set up PCs and port assignments for the VLANs, and then we'll set up inter-VLAN routing. Alright guys, we're going to set up STP like I said that we would in the last video. It got too long and I wanted to set it up over here. I already have it set up properly on this side, so y'all have to set it up on this side based on what I do on this side. So open up, it says that I wanted this to be the root bridge. So now we have to do the spanning tree mode on every switch, but it's really just 2 commands we need, and that's all that you need, and it's very easy. So I'm going to get into my switch, go into config T. Remember, I want him to be the root bridge, and I want to run rapid PVST, so on both ends as well. So all you do is spanning tree mode, and then just hit R, or you can type in rapid PVST, and that's it. That's going to set the mode to rapid PVST. Second command I need is spanning tree VLAN. Y'all seem to forget this, but I do want him to be the root bridge for VLAN 1. Even though we don't use VLAN 1, he still needs to be the root bridge for it. So 1, 130, 140, 150, and of course the management VLAN, which is 80. And there's two commands you can do. You can either do root primary, or you can do priority 4096. Okay? So now when I do a show run, I can see that I'm running rapid PVST and that he should be the root bridge. Now, how do you confirm that? Show span. And just look for this bridge is the root, this bridge is the root, this bridge is the root, this bridge is the root. So now we know that he's the root bridge, and that's what we need. But we still have to set these other switches up for rapid PVST. So we just go and do spanning tree mode, rapid PVST, and that's all we need to do to set up oh man, I'm sorry guys, rapid PVST. If I could get into my router or my switch over here. There we go. 6th time is the charm, right? And we're done. That's it. That's how you set up STP. And I've already got it set up on this switch. As you can see, with his priority being 24,576, I did the root primary command because this switch has a lower priority. So this one I actually set the priority. With this one, I just did root primary. So just to show you the differences there. So that's how you set up STP. Now we're going to go into our routers and do our inter-VLAN routing. Again, same thing. I'm going to set it up on this side. Y'all are responsible for setting it up on this side if you're following along at home. So what I do over here reflects what I do over here, but I'm not going to spend time to make the changes over here. It'll take too long. So just on this one router, we're going to go into interface, fast Ethernet 00 dot, let's do 80 first. And we'll do encapsulation .1q. Who are we doing it for? We're doing it for VLAN 80. And then also, since 80 is my native VLAN, I need to state that it's now the native VLAN. And I'll put an IP address on it. Just do something random. Interface FA00 dot 130. We'll do encap .1q for 130. We'll do an IP address of 10.0.0.1. If it's a /25, I need to change this to a /23 because that's what I wanted it to be. Now we go into 140. Have to do encapsulation dot for 140. We'll do an IP address here of 10. We'll do an IP address. I like it if y'all will do a description. Just do VLAN 140 marketing. Makes it a little bit nicer for me. Go into interface FA00 dot 150. we'll do, if you want to know the short for the command, it's just ncap d 150, and that's the short for the command. That right there is the exact same as typing all that. So, just if you wanted to know. IP add. And a description. This is VLAN 150 sales. And I'll just go back into 130 and do a little description real quick. And description VLAN 80 native. Alrighty. And we should do show run. We can see that we've got our sub interfaces now. And we'll do a show IP route. And we have the sub interfaces in there as well. So I'm going to hook some PCs up here. I'll give you guys the port assignments here in the next video, and we'll do some ping tests to see if they worked. Be sure to write this information down and this information down, as it will be moved lower in the next video. Okay? Okay, guys. I got the Denton router. I've got his sub interfaces configured. I've got Fort Worth with his sub interface configured. So now, to test the inter VLAN routing, I got to plug in some PCs and assign switch ports to the VLANs. So I just plugged in PCs support 7. This one will show up. It's supposed to say 12, and this is 20. And again, it's not going to work, but 7, 12, and 20 is what I want you to do. You can choose anything in this range, but just what I did was 7, 12, 20. So you know what those are. So let's go into the access switches and do something. I'm going to create a template on this switch that I'm just going to copy over onto this switch and do the same thing over here. Y'all are going to have to just doing what I've always done. I'm configuring this side. You guys configure this side. So I'm going to come in over here, go into interface range, FA0, 6 through 10, do switch port, mode, access, switch port, access, VLAN 130. Exit that range, interface range, FA0, 11 to 16, switch port, mode, access, switch port, access, VLAN 140, interface range, FA0, 17 to 24. If you want to know the short for those commands, it's switch, mo, or swi, mo, ac, swi, ac, VLAN, and the VLAN number. Those are the shorts for these. Okay? Now you can see my ports are all set up correctly. All I'm going to do is copy up to port 6, open up Notepad, I don't need any of this in there because it's already in there. I can get rid of the gigabit lines and then just straight copy. Open up this switch, go into config T, paste it. I'll do a show run, and you can see that these are now all correct. So that's the fast way to do that, because remember, VTP doesn't pull over port information. So hopefully when we do this, it won't say that. Oh, because I got to set up IP addressing, and I want to set up DHCP. So we can't ping each other yet, guys, cause unless you want to set static IP addresses. But I am going to run DHCP on this router, so obviously I can't ping yet. So y'all do that on this side. Also, before we quit this lesson or this video, I do want you to do one more thing. Go into interface VLAN 80, and we're just going to do an IP address. I'm just setting a management IP address for the management VLAN. This is only for telnet purposes. They have to be different on every switch. Again, this is not a pingable address that traffic's going to be flowing to. It's just for telnet purposes. Okay, so y'all do that as well. Go into your management VLAN interfaces. So 80 on this side, I would just go in interface VLAN 90 on this side. I would make the IP address 192.168.90.0 and just 2, 3, 4, 5. Just do it that way. Alright, and in the next video, we will we'll set the bandwidth for these links, and we will set up DHCP on both sides. Okay, so not DCHP, DHCP. Alrighty. Alright, we're going to set the bandwidth on these links now, guys, and we're going to set up DHCP on both routers. Again, I'll do this side, y'all do this side. Alrighty, so with bandwidth, you have to do this speed on every single link that you have connected. So if it's a T1 on this serial 001, it has to be a T1 on this serial 000. Alright, so since T1 speed is 1544, and that's the default bandwidth, we don't have to change anything on this side, but we do need to go into serial 000, both router 1 and 2, or I'm sorry, Denton and Dallas. And just type in bandwidth. How fast is it? 512. Okay, so on Denton, we're done. On Dallas now, we have to go in to his interface serial 00 and do the same thing. Bandwidth 512. We need to go into his serial 001 and make that bandwidth 256, and then we're done with him. We have to go into Fort Worth and do bandwidth 256. You can see on the show run on his serial interface he now has bandwidth and bandwidth. So that's all you have to do to set the bandwidth up. Now we're going to set up DHCP. Okay, so there's the numbers, there's the networks that y'all will need for your DHCP pool. Okay, so I'm going to go into Denton, I'm going to go into conf T, and I'm going to exclude going to exclude the first 15 addresses in all DHCP pools. And I'd like for you to do that on both sides, please. So to do that, we're going to type in IP DHCP excluded address, and we're just going to do a range. Okay, and this is really easy. Just do 10.0.0.1 space 10.0.0.15. That'll exclude address 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.15. So the first address that you should get on one of these PCs is 10.0.0.16. Do the same command, different network though. 10.0.2.1 to 10.0.2.15 for the marketing VLAN. And for the last one, we're going to do 3.1 to 3.15. So that's for this VLAN. You can go and type in IP DHCP pool. Now you have to name the pool. Let's just name it conveniently. This is for the administration, so we're just going to call it admin. Got to type in the network. It's 10.0.0.0, 255.255.254.0. Default router is 10.0.0.1. And then you're done. IP DHCP pool. We'll name this one marketing, if I could spell marketing right. Gotta do the network. 10.0.2.0, 255.255.255.0, and your default router is 10.0.2.1. And you're done with that pool. IP DHCP pool. For the last one, we'll just call it sales. The network is 10.0.3.0, 255.255.255.0, and the default router is 10.0.3.1. Exit, do show run, and you can see I've got my excluded addresses here and my 3 pools. Now that's all well and good. Do I have to do anything on the switches to push it? Absolutely not. The only thing you have to do is go into a PC, go to config, make sure he's set to DHCP, and now you can see he's automatically configured his address. DHCP, and there's his address, and DHCP 3.1, 3.16. So that's how you set up DHCP. It's that easy. These commands right here. So do those commands on this side for the Fort Worth router. Only you're going to do it for VLANs 500, 550, and 560. So if you could do that by the next video. In the next video, we will set up OSPF on all 3 routers. So y'all get ready for that. Alright guys, if you set up inter-VLAN routing on the routers correctly, meaning you just configured your sub interfaces, if you can see, well, if it would stay, you can see the sub interfaces. And you've got your PCs with their DHCP addresses, and I did the Fort Worth side. Y'all should have done that side too. You should be able to ping between VLANs now. Now, obviously, we still can't ping from this route, from this PC to this PC. Why? Well, because we haven't set up OSPF yet. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'll set it up on all 3 routers for you guys. In setting up your routing protocol, what I like to do first is I like to do a show IP interface brief to see what my networks are. Now that's a good and a bad thing because you can't see the subnet masks that you're using, so you might want to do a show run. That way you can see the subnet masks when you're configuring. It's completely your call though. So you have to go into config T. We're doing router OSPF 300, as you can see right here. We're going to do network. We're going to do network 192.168.80.0.000.255 area 0. That was our management VLAN, if you'll remember correctly. The next network is the 10.0.0.0 network. 1.255 area 0 network 10.0.2.0 0.0.0.255 and 10.0.3.0 and our point-to-point links 10.0 oops 0.5.32 and I actually can't remember what network this was in. 41 would be in the 40 network. And now we do a show run, and we've got all of our networks in there. So that was for Denton. Dallas has it pretty easy. He's only got 3 networks connected to him. Do not propagate that network. It's the public address that we're using to connect, so do not put that network statement in there. So you only have 2 network statements. Config T, OSPF 300, network. And V36 network. If I'm not mistaken, 32 and 36. Yep, and Dallas is done. All he needed is 2 network statements for the private addresses. We'll come back to this router. We'll come back to this Dallas router when we set up NAT. Okay, but for right now, we're done. DHCP for this one. Do show IP. And we will do a router OSPF 300 network 192.168.90.0 network 10.0.4.0 network 10.0.4.128 network he should now have OSPF set up for Fort Worth. So now OSPF is set up. Probably want to confirm that it's working with show IP route. I can see that I've got quite a few networks. Dallas should have the most, and he does. And Fort Worth should have a couple in there as well. Yes. So let's try to ping from this network to this network, and it's successful. All the way across now we can ping. which is good. So that's how you set up OSPF in this topology. In the next video, we will learn how and why we need to set up default routing, static routing, and we'll propagate that through OSPF. Okay. Alright guys, now we're going to set up the default routes, the static routes, and NAT. And actually we're going to configure Pat on this router, because he was technically our gateway router. Okay, so you can see on the AT&T router that I have my fast Ethernet 00 is up with that IP address, and I've got my serial 011 with 190.0.15.34. Alright, and so Dallas has a 190.0.15.33 address. Alright, do we want to share our routing table with the ISP? Absolutely not. Do they want our routing tables? Absolutely not. So, what do we do? Well, first we're going to go into Dallas. We're going to do a static default route. It'd help if I did the whole command, right? We're going to do a static default route going out serial 011 because that's where the ISP is. So now we've got our static route. Now we need to go back into router OSPF 300 and do a default information originate. That tells Dallas to propagate his default route. So now everybody can connect to the ISP router. Well, actually they can't because he doesn't have a route. ISP doesn't have a route to Dallas, but everybody would be able to ping once we set that up. So Dallas now is done. And what does AT&T do? AT&T is going to do this. They're going to go into config T. They're going to do IP route 190.0.15.32. 255, 255, 255, 240 because it's a /28, and they're going to send that out serial 011 because that's how they're connected to us. Okay, so they have a static route to us now, and that's it. Their show run looks like this now. They got their Ethernet, they got their serial, they got their route, and that's all they need. Dallas can ping AT&T, that's fine. Can my host ping AT&T? No, they cannot. Why can they not ping AT&T? Because AT&T only has a route to the 190.0.15.32 network, not the 10.0.0.0 network. So this is where Pat comes into play. Going to Dallas, going to config T, IP, NAT, pool, we're going to call it web. Nah, we'll call it internets. So we're setting up a NAT pool now, and we're calling that pool internets. The addresses I want to use are 190.0.15.35, 190.0.15. Oh, let's see. We'll just do 44. And then net mask 255, 255, 255, 240. This is our NAT pool now. Now we're not done yet. We have to set up an IP access list. You can make it standard, and we'll call it web. No, we'll call it NAT. That'll make it easier. And we're just going to permit 10.0.0.0. Easy peasy. We're just allowing all of the 10 network because, oh my gosh, that's who we are. So, now we have that done. Last part of NAT, well, actually the second to last part of NAT, we need to do IP NAT inside source list. What's our list? Well, the source list that we're using is NAT. That's the access list. Our pool was called what? Internets. And now we need one more command. I said I wanted y'all to configure pat, so type in overload. So now NAT is set up, but NAT will not work just yet. I still have to do IP NAT inside and outside on the inside and outside interfaces. Well, what's our internal network? Well, our internal network is this serial interface and this serial interface, and our outside network is this serial interface. So let's just do that. I'll go into interface serial 000 and do IP NAT inside. We'll go into interface serial 001 and do IP NAT inside. We'll go into interface serial 011 and do IP NAT outside. Now, NAT should be done. We got inside, outside, inside. We have our NAT set up. We have our standard access list to permit, and we have our default route. So let's just go ahead and try it. We'll ping from Denton to AT&T. Oh, successful. From the computer to AT&T is successful. So now everybody should be able to talk to AT&T, and we should be able to talk to this guy too, which we can. So now we have full web connectivity across our network. Every VLAN right now is pinging the web server. Now notice on AT&T, he doesn't have a route to this guy. He doesn't need one. He's directly connected to this guy. Dallas doesn't have a route to this guy. Why? Because this takes care of it right here. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense to you guys how to set NAT up. When we get in this next video, we're going to do the hard part, and we're going to set up our access control list, and that'll be the last thing that we set up in this video. All right.